7 and a bit. We'll call it about 7 yards right here. Two out of 3. The nice thing about a mailing tube is that it holds the arrow. It's easy to recover the arrow. It makes a nice, cool sound when it hits that I enjoy.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So all I'm concerned to myself with is trying to hit that thing. Feel that? It's fun. You hear that smack, you see the arrow vibrate in the mailing tube. You go, ah, that was cool. And look at the other two. Look how close these came. They just missed the mailing tube, but not by much. So the nice thing when you shoot for the center line like that and your windage is off, you're still hitting the target, the actual target. Yeah, I'm a wide load, I know, but pretty hard to miss me at 7 yards.
Over.
One of the things that I do is maybe a little unconventional is I'm always testing arrows, looking for inexpensive arrows that work good. As many of you know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I came from very humble beginnings, and with God's help, worked my way up. I put myself through college, all private schools, paid for it myself. And I haven't forgotten the value of a dollar and how hard it is to earn a living. And I hate to pay $120 or $140 a dozen, and sometimes even a half dozen for arrows. And then you have to put the points on them. Sometimes you have to put the nocks and even the fletching on them. So I'm always experimenting with inexpensive arrows. This is an inexpensive carbon arrow that I've been shooting. I haven't decided whether I'm going to sell it or not, but I've been shooting quite a few of them. I'm shooting right now at about 21, 22 yards. And you can see it's pretty accurate. Now, every one of these arrows, I've got 3 different arrows in my box here. I've got this cheap hollow fiberglass one with this swaged steel point. It's got a plastic knock on it, plastic vanes. There I just shot. I had to hold about 4 inches under the target. This one I have to hold slightly over the bullseye. Now I'm shooting at a bag target that my friend Cody Davis gave me from his archery shop. He'd shot up one side of it, so he gave me the bag, and it was still good on the other side, so I've been shooting it for quite a while. My friend Buck Medley, he was out here and we were shooting, and he painted all the dots on it. And you can see it's pretty flippin' accurate. I'm shooting this Matthews Genesis bow with a spot hog sight on it. I really like these spot hog sights. I suggest you acquire one or more of them. They've been really reliable. They're bright. They're easy to adjust. They're accurate. I can't say enough about them. I've been very, very happy with it. This is a 5-pin model, and you know, I don't see as good close up as I used to, and even without glasses I can see the pins, which is a big deal in daylight for me. Now when I'm in a blind, that becomes more problematic, but in broad daylight works pretty good. This is another one of those economy arrows. You can see it kind of goes. It's not razor fast, but this is just a 35-pound bow. Now, you might say, well, why do you shoot a 35-pound bow? That seems pretty light for you, Lynn. Well, it is. You know, my hunting bows are all 70 pounds, 75 pounds plus. I'll probably even go up to 80-pound bows because I can pull them and I can shoot them decent. But with all the other stuff I do every week, I can't continually shoot heavy pound bows because it starts to aggravate my elbow. This right and left arm both get work thousands and thousands of times a week. They're lifting kettlebells, they're lifting Indian clubs, they're lifting medicine balls. Luke and I the other day, we counted, I usually fight with 2 swords, a katana and a wakizashi, or 2 katanas. And in 1 hour I moved my arms over 6,000 times. So the arms get a lot of use in my training. All the kickboxing and grappling I do, and boxe français, Thai boxing, all the Filipino martial arts, all the unarmed aspects of the Filipino martial arts. Like my knuckles quite often are always swollen here from guntings and hitting. So I have to shoot a lower power bow if I'm going to shoot a lot. And I believe in shooting a lot. You know, when you talk to me about shooting firearms, I'll say the only difference between me and you is a couple million .22 rounds. I shoot prodigious amounts of ammunition. If you can't afford that, shoot an air gun. I couldn't afford it either when I was a young man. I shot air guns like crazy. So, to get back to my story, is if you want to be a good archer, you need to shoot your bow. And if you can't shoot a 75-pound bow 100 times, get a 35-pound bow, and you can. Now, one of the tricks that I do to save my bow arm and my spear arm, and I talked about this when I was throwing spears, is in between shots, about every 2 or 3 shots, I'll walk my cones. And I illustrated this before, so I'll go back and walk my cones. Now, my friend Tim Wells, I told him I was doing stuff like this, and he said, well, it's going to make you more tired and you're not going to get as much practice in. Well, that may be true, but part of my practice is to get exercise and to constantly work on my footwork. Now, why do I move backwards so much? Well, it's not extremely natural, but in fighting, almost every lateral motion starts with a backward one. Sometimes I can push to the side. Sometimes, especially in knife fighting, I have to get out of range before I can even go to the side. So, if I step this way with a knife, you can still reach me. If I step this way with a knife, I'm out of range, especially if I take another one. So, walking backwards and maneuvering around things is a huge part of improving your overall footwork and your ability to move in combat. And movement is everything. Movement of inches means huge variations in outcome. I only have to move an inch or 2 to make your sword tip miss me, to make your thrust fall short, to slip past your point, to slip your punch, to make your punch or your kick have to be recalibrated, miss entirely. Sometimes I'll just step into it. You know, I'll step into it. You go to kick me, I'll step into it. I'll brace, take the kick. Now I'm in great position, pow, to follow up with my own. So, this ability to move constantly needs to be cultivated. And one of the ways I do that, besides my regular training, because like when I'm in the gym, I don't do these footwork drills as much. I'm actually fighting there. That's where I'm actually implementing the qualities and characteristics and the attributes that I get in my training here in my ninja camp. So this on Saturday and Sunday, after church, I'm out here almost always shooting air guns, throwing my spear, shooting my bow, and working on my footwork. So how many steps is enough? First, I'd like you to do 200 steps and work up to 1,000 steps every other day backwards. I'd like you to do 500 steps laterally. Now, you're gonna notice, you start out, it's gonna hurt on the outside of your thighs. You know, you're gonna feel that because we don't, like I said, we don't move like this normally. This isn't our normal motion, but it's enormously important. This causes everything to recalibrate, especially in hand-to-hand combat. Move that far causes recalibration. Where you were, you're not. Where the punch or the kick was going, that target is now moved. It's just moved a little bit, but now everything has to be recalibrated to adapt to that. So this foils your opponent's attack and it can set you up for attack. Goes the same thing with weapons. I'm here, I walked over here, I stepped in, I stepped back out, I ran to the side, I took a step, I took a step, I took a step, I took 2 steps forward. It all causes recalibration, and it throws off your enemy's plans. He thinks he's going to make an attack on you here, but you move here. He thinks he's going to line you up here, and you move over here. He thinks you're there, I move over here. He thinks I'm here, I move over there. Get back behind my sword. Constantly, these footwork drills are being used in combat, and you won't know you're using them, but you will. Russ 70, one of my training partners, is a fabulous Taekwondo, Rangdo guy, and he's a big guy, but he's very, very skilled kicking. And he's always telling me, I'll say, how did I get out of that? He said, you moved. I didn't feel myself move. I moved, but I didn't feel it. I didn't know it, but I just adjusted without thinking about it. And you can do that all the time if you make these footworks your own. So it's not a waste of time. It's not a waste of energy. It's a huge benefit to a warrior to work on his footwork. So shooting your bow can accomplish lots of things. I'll shoot another one of these cheap fiberglass arrows. Now the biggest tip I can give you in shooting a bow, because I didn't get very much instruction. I've got fantastic archers for friends, but they've done very little. Maybe Buck's helped me the most. They've done very little in helping me learn how to shoot a bow. So your stance is important, but for me the most important thing is I keep this left arm rigid, rigid, rigid. This arm cannot move as you release that. The other thing is, if you're going to use a release, I learned this at the ATA show a couple years ago. You get your finger, not here, like on a trigger, a little further through, like that. And that allows you to release, for me anyway, to release smoother and with less effort. In smoothness and speed, because if your release isn't good, you're going to move off target. And you might not miss by much, but sometimes it makes the difference between the kill zone and the guts. The other thing is, as Buck would say, get that string in tight to your face. The string should be on your nose. Tight, 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 tight. Make sure your bow's straight up and down. I used to use a, what do you call those things? A level. I used to use a level on my bow, and some of my sites probably still have it. And you could see when the bubble would come up perfect, and you know that you're straight up and down, you're not canting your bow, and that's important. But the most important thing is, in my opinion, is to keep this left arm straight. And the other thing that really bothers me as an archer, compared to being a gun guy, is the long, I'll call it lock time if I can use a firearm expression, the long time between I squeeze that trigger on the release and that arrow hits the target. You can move just the slightest and throw off your aim. When I'm shooting a handgun and the bullet's traveling at 1,200 feet per second or 1,600 feet per second, it leaves pretty instantaneously. When that hammer drops, bang, it's gone, instantly. That arrow isn't. It's going slow. It's going slow. You know, it's 5 to 6 or 7 times as slow as a handgun, and it's much slower. You know, my 300 Win Mag, I'm shooting that heavy Magnum Hornady load out of it. I think it's 190 grains at about 2,900 feet per second. 2,900 feet per second. And that bow's probably doing 200, 250, 225. I haven't chronographed it, but it's not a powerful bow. It's going really slow. So what's that? A fraction, a tiny fraction. 300 feet per second would be 10%. So I doubt I've even going 10% as fast. So it makes a difference. It really does. I've missed animals in Africa. They moved just as I shot with a 454. It's going. I'm mostly shooting a Winchester or Hornady 300 grain jacketed hollow point XTP out of the Hornady. That's going about 1,600 feet per second. I shoot the Winchester 300 grain jacketed soft point about the same. And have animals take one step or half a step or whatever and screw up my entire sight picture and aim because the bullet took so long to get there. By the time the bullet got there, they'd moved. But with a 300 Win Mag, that seldom happens. It's going twice as fast. I haven't lost anything other than my poor shooting ability. The animal can't move at many ranges enough to get away from that bullet in time, especially under 100 yards. So here's another arrow I shoot. I shoot a crop load of Easton 300 grain arrows, or 300 spine I should say, and I shoot a crop load of these Victory arrows. Victory has been really good to me, and I believe in their arrows, and if you don't have an arrow brand you're in love with, I suggest you try Victory. In my opinion, they're pretty reasonably priced, and the quality is really good. You can see that arrow is a little shorter, and it went a lot faster out of this moderately powered bow. Now, so let's set that down. I'm going to go to one of the other things I do.
Okay. Let me just.
Yeah, pretty decent shooting. I have a great affinity for our full-size Viking Axe. This thing cuts like a chainsaw. And this is a steel one that I've taken the edge and the points down on, but it's full weight. I have about 7 or 8 of these in aluminum, which I fight with my training partners when I can talk them into doing it. This thing hits so hard that no one wants to train with it against it for very long. And I'm fortunate that I have tough training partners. Luke LaFontaine is a very tough guy and can take a lot of punishment like me and isn't a crybaby. And like when we get hurt training, we have a saying. We say we're not doing ballet. We understand that it's not malicious, that you're going to get struck and hit and hurt, and you're going to get wrenched and thrown on the ground and pulled and twisted, and hey, it's not malicious. So, but at the same token, it still is really physical, and a lot of people don't like it. If you can find a good training partner, please Treat him or her like gold. They're rare as hen's teeth. Honor and respect and love your training partners. If you're going to grow, you need them if you're going to progress as a warrior. And there's nothing that'll help you grow faster than having good training partners. So really respect them. So one of the things I do is I have a lot of tire pills. Robert Vaughn made these for me. And you don't have to hit these things hard. You just have to control the edge. One of the beautiful things about a Viking axe, when it's sharpened like cold steel sharpens it, if I come over here and do that to your leg, all I need is that. And your leg's off. Gone. Chop through the bone, above the knee, finished. It doesn't take much. Just a touch like that will cut your arm off. Just that much. I'm not winding up. I'm not putting my body weight in it. I'm just really flicking it from my arms. But they knew what they were doing when they designed this thing. I say it's not for chopping wood. It's got a thin edge, but you know what? We've been using this at our parking lot sales to have people attack cars with, and we have one axe that we've used now for maybe 4 or 5 parking lot sales all day long, and that thing has held up tremendously well. So, well, I don't say it's for chopping wood. Maybe. I'm going to go out and chop some wood with it this year and just see how well it does. I think it's going to hold up surprisingly well. I'm not willing to say go out and chop wood with it yet because it is thin and I can't control what you're going to do with it. But this was made to chop flesh and blood, and it's exceedingly good at that. So what I do is I stand in front of the plow and I'll cut that angle, I'll cut that angle, I'll cut straight down, I'll cut this angle, I'll cut that angle, I'll stab it here, I'll stab it there, I'll stab it there, I'll cut this angle, I'll switch, and I'll make a swing, I'll switch and make a swing, I'll switch and make a swing. Now, when I'm fighting with an axe, I seldom open myself up like that unless the person's already debilitated. By the time I do this, anyone good with a sword, if I have a small sword and you go to do with that, I'm gonna go la, and I'm gonna stick that in your throat or your armpit or your gut pile way before that axe hits me. So I'll make shorter, economical. Maybe I'll thrust quickly like this. Maybe I'll give you a jab like that with the edge. Quick cut. But I seldom, unless I have a really great opening, will I come in here and go like that. This takes a lot of time to get there and to recover from it. Someone with a sword or a lighter, faster weapon can quite often beat you to the punch. Now what I might do is stay out of range and then enter into range with my cut. That's different. Now you have to deal with this before you can deal with me. It's getting there before I'm getting there. But when I'm at this range, I won't open myself up. See how I open myself up if I make a big cut versus I keep it in here, here, or here. Quite often it's like this, being used defensively, and then I'll get that cut. Then I'll get that cut. Then I'll get that cut. Then I'll get that stab. But big motions against knowledgeable opponents can lead to your death. You don't need them. This thing is the closest thing to a lightsaber you're ever going to see. Right here. Cuts through flesh and bone like it's not there. Between everything I do with a weapon on my ranch here, and I suggest you do that too, you intersperse it with your footwork. You know, I showed these backward walking drills. You can come over here, you can do some lateral motion drills that I've illustrated before. In between, all these things are huge for building attributes that will come out naturally and fighting. Everything is fighting. You know, you could be precise in the gym. When you start to fight, everything seems to round over. But the harder you practice, the less it rounds over, and the more effective and efficient it becomes. The less sloppy it becomes. I always say you shoot a 3 times larger group in combat than you do in practice. So I try to shoot very small targets all the time, because if I can hit those, I know my group will open up, but it'll still be very, very good enough. If you shoot sloppy groups in practice, you're going to totally miss when it's first shooting for real. It's the same thing in fighting. You know, you have to practice. I don't know how many thousands of times I stood in front of a heavy bag and worked this cover. Back and forth. Got my hat in the way. Back and forth. Making that twist. You want to get your elbow here. You want to close that gap here. You can answer. Some good boxing trainers call this answering the phone. They'll put their glove here. And without a glove though, maybe you have a tactical glove, I hope you have one of ours, is I'll come back a little further and try to grab the back of my head. Cover my ear, cinch this gap close, point my elbow here. So this elbow quite often drives forward. So I'll try to get inside your punch and drive with my elbow, grab your head, step in, drive that again, and go to work. Because I own Cold Steel and have access to all the weapons and shops and all the skilled people I have working for me, I can modify swords and do whatever I want. This is a longsword blade on a shorter longsword handle. I usually fight one-handed with something this short. I might put 2 hands on the end of it if I had a finishing blow, but normally I'll fight with a buckler or a dagger in this hand, kind of like side sword and dagger. So I'll use this. And I'm just mostly using my arm right now. Not much English on it. What's nice about a PEL is you can step, 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 and you can work your way around the PEL. And that's what I want you to do. When I'm out here, I'm not super serious. I'm just trying to get used to making that contact, making that contact, making that contact. And you know, watch as I cut this and I sink my body into it. You can see how it lays that cut right across that tire. A longsword, in particular, I've had really good success with our German longsword. Cuts way out of proportion to what it should do. I've cut through 4-inch thick bamboo with a German longsword. So you can take somebody's leg off with one of these things with a good stroke. An arm below the elbow, no problem. Above the elbow, pretty easily done. A head, no problem. All you have to do is come in and hit the head like that. It's going to come flying off. Right above the shoulders. Off it comes. Now, your sword has to be sharp. Okay? And you can't hit like they do on Forged in Fire. You can't let your wrist turn. You can't hit flat. You gotta hit with the correct edge orientation. You have to let that edge penetrate. And when it hits right like that, awesome things happen when you have a really good Cold Steel longsword. So, most of my practice with this is one-handed. And it's not fast. It's slow. One thing that's nice about this is I'll practice this, my rising cut. I'll miss here, rise with that cut, come back down. Having these pels is a huge advantage, and this is something that you can make it yourself. We got this cast concrete block probably at Home Depot, and we fitted this post into it, screwed in all the tires. Probably make it for less than $100 if you get all the tires. Good thing to have. This is the trainer I use the most on the ranch, other than a Bowie knife. One of my employees, Sergio Tamayo, he cut the axe head off, a pole axe, and welded on another hammerhead. And he just finished his first major welding course at the college and got an A in it. I'm really proud of Sergio. He's a great employee, and we're really fortunate to have him for all these years. He just got a brand new truck for Christmas too, as a present for Cold Steel. As you can see, I shorten this. You know, I'm not a giant. Maybe in girth, but not in height. So, super long stuff, sometimes harder for me to handle. Like on a greatsword, I always cut the quillions off about 1 inch on either side. I shorten them because when I lean that sword up, sometimes I hit myself with the quillions. My arms are short and I'm not super tall, and those longer quillions get in my way. So I shorten them. Don't be afraid to modify stuff to suit yourself. I swing this a lot because it's heavy. It's hard to keep it level. When you're using an axe sideways, you have to hit true with the edge. That takes strength. You need to be able to hold that so it lines up and penetrates correctly, like that. Now, a blow like this, you get hit with that, it's curtains. On your arm, your rib cage, your hip, your leg. Now, you're not coming back from that. This is an armor smasher. This will stop your heart. You come up and do this and hit somebody in the chest with it. Stops their heart. My shirt a mess?
No, it's untucked. You're good though.
Again, you don't have to hit hard with it. Just get used to it. Get used to picking targets on the low level. This thing will work your core as much as it does your arms and shoulders. Your core has to engage to hold this thing, especially in any horizontal blow. You're using your core. And again, it doesn't take much. That. And these tires will challenge your grip. I hit slightly off here and just whoop, like that, turned instantly. You need to align that head so it hits true and doesn't twist. But God forbid we ever had a zombie apocalypse, but just one of these per walker, and they walk no more. Thanks for joining me on the ranch as you watch me try to keep my skills up during this coronavirus time. I hope you have the space and inclination to get out there and keep training, keep working, stay healthy, keep those endomorphins flowing, keep those brain waves positive. We're going to get through this shortly.